Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the weekly AI Revolution call with John D. Oliveira. I am Bryce Smith. I work with Cody Willard at Trading with Cody and at the 10,000 Days Capital Management. And so, as we do every week, we discuss all of the exciting and things happening in the world of AI and the best way to invest in them and find new stocks and talk about how it's going to affect the ones that are out there. So, I don't know, John. Maybe start with you. What have you seen in AI? Tesla's got a lot going on, and I can talk about that later. But
yeah, that was actually I was going to ask about that, but we can go later. There is a lot of Tesla happening. Who was it? I'm trying to remember who I just saw being interviewed yesterday. Who was like, you know who it was? It was the he's on the board at OpenAI. And he might be their chairman right now, chairman of the board of OpenAI. But he was in an interview, and what was interesting was just how he was kind of playing down how fast things are going to happen.
Really,
his little saying about it that he didn't come up with or didn't claim to come up with had to do with people. They're off in terms of how quick they think things are going to happen.
Right.
But then once they do happen, they're off in looking back on it, how quick they end up happening. So I think that's sort of like the old, what's it? Part of it's called the takeoff, and the other part's called the, it's like slow arrival, fast takeoff, or vice versa, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, we always say repeat the same. I think it's attributed to Lenin, but it's the nothing happens for decades and then decades happen all at once type of thing.
Yeah, right? There you go. Right, and I think it sounded like he was saying a similar thing, but he was also it was Larry Summers. It was Larry.
Yeah.
And he was saying he did think that basically AI is going to take all the jobs. It's just going to take them all. But
take them all, huh?
Yeah, but that it's not going to happen for a while.
If that happens, so like AI is doing everything or most everything, then like people are just we're all on vacation or in Bali or Cancun, and
I don't know.
Fail, like what's
like I don't buy it. Like
I don't either. That's why I don't understand what.
Yeah. I think, well, what do we have that exists today that we could look at and say that's what this kind of situation looks like? And I'd say if you look to maybe an area of high unemployment, or like, Allentown, Pennsylvania, after all the industry left, or every other small town America after all the industry left, it's like you can go and say, oh, it's okay, we'll get a minimum basic income or whatever. Yeah, maybe that'll cover some of the payment, but that doesn't really solve the problem of people not working or what they're doing when they're not working. Not everyone can open a meth lab. So
I don't think, John, like if you like, there's some lessons from history with respect to this, because we've had major technological revolutions before that have completely changed how humans work. I mean, in the year 1700 or 1600, like 95% of the world's population was focused on producing food, right? And it was agrarian society, and then industrial revolution starts happening, and pretty soon all those jobs that were people were farming for a living, they start doing other things. It just seems like it's the same thing with the steam revolution and electricity revolution, and it costs a lot of jobs, but every single time humans figure out other things to do, and the economy grows, wealth is created, and we roll on. And there's not to downplay like the stuff. There's some people.
Yeah. I mean, number one, does that actually is that going to repeat itself again? Because this one is kind of different. It's not just another revolution like agriculture revolution, industrial revolution, number one, number two, number three. It's if it's what it's kind of purported to be, it's like way more of a change. And so does it actually follow and rhyme like that? And then, let's say it does, and then it's like, okay, so just stuff's gonna just, change, but it'll still be there. Okay, let's take that for a minute. What is that? What will people do? Like, not even specifically, but even kind of thing,
Yeah. I mean, one thing that's exciting to me, possibilities, like just we talk about the space revolution a lot, and if more humans can be dedicated to exploring other worlds and building rockets and stuff like that, to take us to those places, like if we can dedicate, orders of magnitude more resources to exploring space, then I think that's, and that might be possible because AI frees up those resources for us. That's one thing like I think of, right now space is expensive and it's not a lot of like tangible economic benefit in the near term. It's all paid for by the government, right? But if all of a sudden we have all these people freed up, then maybe they can work on rocket ships and going to those other places.
Let's take, our neighborhood plumber that we've talked about, because I think it'll be one of the later jobs to go, because again, it's not easy to learn all the ins and outs. It takes like a lot of years to get the experience, what you actually do in different situations. So, but even then, remember that we can have situations where you don't replace the plumber, you just unemploy 9 out of 10 of them, because that the plumber that remains gets enough tools and help and automation from whatever so that kind of maybe happen. So your typical plumber, electrician, carpenter, etc., what are they going to do for building rockets? And how is the rocket industry going to go and say, what we need is more people? Like, I'm not sure if that's who they hire.
I mean, if just in terms of having physical labor, it might be helpful. I know like skilled, pipe fitters and stuff like that, putting these things together, I could see a translation there. But even if they have to be reskilled, I think there's jobs to be done. I mean, you probably can't. The average plumber is probably not going to be a rocket scientist doing the computing and the calculations to design the rocket, but building it and gathering resources to power them and building launch pads, all that kind of stuff. I don't know, and I think there's ways. That just seems like the next logical step for humanity to take. And I think that's what Elon's working on, is that, we're going to go multiplanetary, and there's a lot of reasons to do that.
So there, the multiplanetary thing, you remember that how the Voyager ships, they just left our solar system. They've been traveling for 60 years. I don't know.
Really? Wow, is that long? Yeah,
they've been traveling a long time, 50 years maybe. They've been traveling a long time, and that's how long it took at a zillion miles an hour to just get out of our own solar system. So it takes a very, very long time, because space is very, very, very big to try to get anywhere. Now, Mars, okay, and then the news comes out just last week or something that it's basically uninhabitable. People could go there for, and maybe this is a problem that will get solved, but the radiation problem, you can get people onto Mars and they could be there maybe 4 years, and then they better get home, because they're just going to die from the level of radiation, no matter what they're doing there. So are these things being taken into consideration? I don't know. Still, I buy the space, the space industry. Maybe it's mining asteroids. I don't know. Those also take a long time to get to, and are very, very spread out.
Yeah, and I give that as an example of what I thought, what people might be doing that are displaced by AI, as one example.
Yeah, the power industry is another, because if we really are going to need, a ton of power of whatever kind, then it's like, hey, everybody, go do whatever you need to participate in this aspect. And then if you think about how, it's going to take everything, but maybe the jobs that involve compassion or something are going to take a while before people have any value in robots helping out in that area, kind of thing.
Yeah, therapists, psychiatrists, that type of thing, nurses.
Yeah, elder care. I mean, certain kind of elder care would be fine. Other kinds, no. So yeah, maybe there's things there. So like massive change. Hopefully, if you go back to the economy part of it, hopefully it corrects. How long does that take? Because that's what I'm thinking is you don't have a this whole thing like, oh, we'll find other things for them to do. How long does it take for first of all figuring out what is needed as a different kind of work, and then for like retraining, retooling, and then kind of culturally or people actually going and changing themselves. What do you think about that?
Well, the good part about the free market, John, as you know, is that stuff tends to kind of work itself out. I'm a believer in the free market, and that's what always happens. And anytime the government gets involved and they're going to have some kind of training program and we're going to help, learn to code or whatever. I think maybe Barack Obama said that. I can't remember. Clinton, I don't remember. But somebody was like, well, we're going to teach everybody that lost their job in a factory how to code. And it's like, people, I don't know, the market usually figures that kind of stuff out pretty well. And people find some productive tasks to set themselves to. But yeah, no, there's without a doubt, there is a loss in having that transition where somebody that's been a plumber for 30 years or a better example is like a lawyer that loses their job, right? And you spent 3 years in law school and 10 years at your law firm learning how to do this. And now all of a sudden AI can draft a contract better than you can. Like, what do you do now, right? There's going to be some pain there in the near term.
Yeah, I was like thinking about what you're saying about the market and education, and thinking about how even like a lot of big expensive universities are getting their comeuppance because they are showing that they can't actually give people the useful skills. Is obviously for some people it's still fine, and they go and they learn there and so forth. But what you have a rise of is like GPT itself, and is YouTube, which I rely on heavily for self-learning. And it's not entirely self. Somebody's got to make the material. And so that aspect of it, people like Bryce writing books, putting content out there, and then other people just realizing, hey, it's up to me. I've got to go learn that stuff.
Totally. Yeah, and that's a good point. Use the YouTube as a segue here. But one of the things, so I sent you a podcast I just listened to. It's Elon Musk and Nikolai Tangent. I may be saying that last name wrong there. But anyways, it came out today. I'll post the link in the comments. But Elon said a lot of interesting things. But one of the constraints that they're facing right now is data. And we talked about this a little bit last week, but Elon did confirm now that like the amount of data needed to train these models as they get bigger and bigger and bigger is becoming a problem. And he used the example. He says you could fit the entire universe of books ever written in compressed form and put them on one hard drive. He's like, even though it's an insurmountable amount of text, it actually is not that much for a computer to handle. And, pretty soon you go through all the videos too. And, YouTube is big in that, or go through all the pictures on Instagram and stuff. And he says that, the LLMs are going to get to the point where they run out of data. And he said his two solutions are, number one, synthetic data or real world video. And obviously Tesla has an advantage in real world video because they have millions of Teslas now driving around filming all the time, but synthetic data is the other part of that. So, I thought that was interesting because I don't know if anybody is looking at companies and valuing them just based on the data that they have that could potentially be used as
I don't know, but it's definitely figured in. In the last 4 places I've worked, it's been, really? Part of the kind of our valuation is, what do we have data wise? How does it make us unique? How does it give us a moat? All of those kinds of things. But it's humbling, isn't it? If you think that all of everything that humans have ever written can be on your drive, like, okay, it's compressed. That's fine. But it's like, it's right there. All of it. Like
every language. I mean, I don't even know how many languages, hundreds of languages of
300. Yeah. It's like, we've for a long time, kind of ever since we got the Hubble going or whatever, we kind of had this new view of Earth as being this speck of dust in the universe. Like on the scale of the universe, like we're nothing. And you look at it and you think it's like, oh, I mean, we're not nothing, but we are, you know, an ant on a beach on the planet, and that's how that's the size that we are. We've got to deal with that, and now we have to deal with that from a content, you know, communication, knowledge standpoint as well, and go. We're an ant on the beach, and that's what we are going to be relative to the AI that can take all of whatever anybody ever said and kind of, you know, work with it. And its growth over the next year, couple of years or whatever is going to be, well, how well can it work with it? But that, you know, it's more and more basically.
Do you think OpenAI and Anthropic and those types of startups that don't natively have data, you know, massive amounts of data, are they in a problem here compared to the Googles and Apples of the world that are sitting on mountains of data just ready to be used by an AI some way?
You've seen the meme of Mira Murati?
No.
So she got interviewed maybe 2 weeks ago.
Oh, right. She's like, where did your data come from? And she's like, I don't know.
she's chief technical officer or something, but she's the one who was the CEO for 2 days. So where are you getting your data? And she goes like, I don't know, but it's all valid, but I don't know what it is, but it's all valid.
It's all legal. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So like I don't know. It's about the same maybe between Google and X, where that they have data, but like Elon's probably saying, you know, that's already all figured in. So, okay, that's how much, you know, and X had access. I mean, OpenAI had access to whatever they're doing now. They just keep using what they did have. It maybe, because then it becomes like, how much can you go back through that and use it? Can you make synthetic data that it, you know, acts like the real thing? You said you looked into that a little bit, I think.
Yeah, there's, from what I could gather, there's synthetic data. Synthetic data is useful for specific things, but it's a supplement, not a replacement, right, for real data.
Oh yeah.
And I think there's no way of getting around having, you know, if pretty soon, especially if you start training AI on AI generated stuff, then it can just become mumbo jumbo where it just becomes nonsensical in its responses and stuff like that.
So where else the growth is in terms of smarts, and I think we've spent a lot of time on, NVIDIA and the processors getting faster and faster. So I mean, we've talked about that a lot. But if you look back at the like what's coming with GPT-5, or like where is the attention for things, what I hear a lot, I mean, I guess you hear it, is about agents. And who was it was even like somebody played a video there where he showed 4 or 5 people, one after the other, agent. One of them was the Andrew Ng, the guy who started Coursera, and he's a huge, kind of machine learning guy. He was doing a talk where he was showing how basically GPT 3.5 with agents is as good or a little better than GPT-4 without agents.
Really?
And so what you're getting is how smart can you be about how you use that? And it's this notion of the LLM OS, the large language model operating system, where instead of like treating it like this one-shot call to get a smart answer, how smart is it going to be? I'm going to ask it a question. Let's see how well it answers. Instead of taking that, you take each kind of answer from it is sort of just like a instruction going through a CPU. So you have a number of those occurring, and it's like, okay, it gave me an answer. I'm going to use that answer to ask it this other thing and to keep working through and so forth. And you got to deal with, how long do these things take and everything. But then agent seems to be a big part of it. Maybe what goes also with that is this notion of LAM, a large action model, instead of just large language model. Google just came out with something yesterday. The idea of like controlling your computer and controlling the web and basically doing things rather than just answering questions.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's intuitive to me that the next logical step for AI is that it goes from answering questions to actually performing valuable tasks for us, right? If it can't do that, then it's kind of like, what's the point?
Yeah.
So how do these, from like a technical standpoint, John, is the company that builds the LLM going to build the LAM or the agent?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, because one, they say so. Like I hear Sam Altman talking about that being either a GPT-5 or 6 thing, but a thing that they're working on.
Okay.
So I think they do intend to have that happen. He tries to steer also away from the idea that just because the stuff that's happened so far was these language models and people want to see it get better and better. He's like, they should step up from that and go, I want to see whatever it is get better, whether it's more like Sora and it's a combination of generative AI and large language model, which is generative, but there's more like the kind of generative that makes a picture versus the kind that is the language one. It's like, whatever that stuff is, what is the resulting level of capability and intelligence? And that's what he's trying to draw people more toward.
So are the agents themselves multimodal, or is that part of the LLM, the underlying layer? And multimodal, for those listening, is like the ability to do text and video and images and then maybe real world stuff at the same time.
Yeah, it was a tough question because I'm picturing, first of all, I was going to say, yeah, the agent's multimodal. It's like, but it gets its multimodalness from the stuff that it's accessing. Mm-hmm. And in order for, even if like what it was accessing were separate models, I got a vision model here, I got a language model here. Ultimately, it's got to do the fusion on those. And so I would say, yes, it's the models themselves are capable of talking across the different modalities, vision, audio, language, in order to do that.
It seems like to me, I don't know, I need to do more research on the agents, but it seems like that's another layer. It's a layer above your kind of your LLM. And then like we were talking about kind of synthesizing modalities, that might even be a whole separate industry or separate companies that come in and build agents that do that, built across, that's integrated with OpenAI and Google and, Amazon's version, Anthropic. And
I guess that's possible to be, I mean, like the work I do, we cut across different LLMs and other things, we're calling out to multiple of them and making use of this from that and that from that. But I do, going back to the last thing you were saying, I do think that it's got, you can get GPT-5 and like already you have with GPT-4, you can go and give it this picture and ask it about it and so forth. So there'll be more of that happening so that you don't have to go jump across. But even if you are doing the jumping across, somewhere there has to be fusion happening down among the models. But I do agree that that the agents introduce a level above, but we shouldn't be thinking of AGI as being a language model. We should think of AGI as being like achieved by whatever got brought together, kind of thing.
So is it on a Tesla rolled out its full self-driving?
Got it.
0.3. Do you got it?
Finally, yeah.
Okay. Impressed so far? What is first take?
I haven't taken it out. So But you can see, like, it just even from regular driving, how much better it is at what it sees. You know, like seeing this person walking over here and that doing that and that light going and the stop sign and the crosswalk, and it's like it sees better. But I haven't taken it out. It's, first of all, as you know, it's my wife's car.
Okay, yeah.
But she said, yeah, go ahead. But she's not interested herself in doing that with it.
Okay.
But,
well, Cody loaned me his over the weekend because Cody lives in a pretty rural area and I live in a bigger city from New Mexico, and wanted to test it out how it would do in a city with traffic and interstates and whatnot, crazy college students driving around and that sort of thing. And it's done. I've told everybody, I think it's about 95% perfect. It makes some errors. You have to intervene at times, and you go in a rural road and it doesn't know, but gosh dang, it's really, really close. And
but it didn't drive you off a cliff.
No, didn't drive me off a cliff, hasn't got me in a wreck. And it's relax. Once you kind of get over the anxiety, like I don't have a Tesla. I can't even compare it to old versions of FSD. But once you get over kind of that anxiety of not holding the wheel and driving 85 miles an hour on the interstate, without holding on, it's actually, I think, a really relaxing way to drive. And especially if you have people who are with you, you're visiting, and like, I wouldn't say it encourages you to not be attentive to the road, but you can turn your head and visit and stuff and not worry about jerking and flying off the side.
But I would think if something does happen, you need to react fairly quickly.
Yes. Yeah. And Tesla's very clear about that. You are.
So how would you know? I mean, how do you have enough time to respond? Is it beep because of the way it beeps?
Yeah, it does. If there's some immediate reason that you need to take over, then it beeps at you and says, grab the wheel immediately.
Okay.
And the only time I've even seen that is like whenever I pull up to like my gate in my house, and I have to punch in the code to go in, and it thinks I'm too close to the gate. So it's like, stop, take over. We're about to wreck.
Yeah. Yeah. So if it's only 95%, then you can't just not have someone behind the wheel.
No.
Then what's up with the robotaxi announcement for August?
Well, I think we're on that exponential rate of change. I think it's between now and then, the technology is going to be, Cody referenced he taught me about the 5 nines. I guess this is a telecom term. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah.
You're familiar.
99.999%. Which, by the way, if you get 5 nines, you're very good. You're never going to see a time you have to grab the wheel.
Right. And so we're definitely not there. But maybe between now and August, we're there,
Yeah. Somebody's joking about how somebody responded on Elon's tweet and said, yeah, I work in that department and I haven't heard about this. Because somebody who doesn't have anything to do with his company, But he's like, could you let me know what it is we're supposed to be doing to get ready? He's joking about the fact that probably Elon just woke up and said, I'm tired of this. Let's just announce,
Yeah.
And then they you all have to worry about actually catching up and being done. I'm announcing it.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound too far off.
No, and Elon's been notoriously bad with his timing on FSD, as we've discussed, and full self-driving and robotaxi, Cybertruck, everything. But the objectively,
I like to say he's been notoriously accurate, just
yeah,
not the time aspect, but what he said would happen happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true. So in the podcast, what Elon's quote is, I'll read it, but he said, AI is the fastest advancing technology I've ever seen of any kind, and I've seen a lot of technology. So with that as the understatement, I think probably Tesla is witnessing some pretty incredible advances in their driving technology because of AI and neural networks and everything that's happened in the last 18 months.
When did they make the switch? When they moved away from 300,000 lines of C code to it being just like a neural network beginning to end? It was maybe within the last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's FSD 12 is the switch, and I think the first version of FSD 12 came out at the end of last year. It was around the time, or maybe middle of last year.
Yeah, that's when they made the switch. Was 12.
Yeah, it was with V12,
and it's a radical switch to drop like all that code and say this is how it's going to happen instead. And I'm not surprised that when they first get it in there, it doesn't get you all the way there. But then once you get it, you're like, okay, we know how to ramp this up,
Yeah, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Yeah.
Whereas before, I think it was so so spotty and jerk. Like, Cody said it was kind of jerky and hesitant to go through stop signs and stuff like that. It's just like it wasn't pleasurable to let it drive you around, and now it is. Every time I use it, going to the house, going to the gym, anything, I put it on the FSD.
It just, I've heard like it feels like a person driving as opposed to like, if-then statements.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's amazing.
It is.
Yeah. And then, so good.
So the other interesting thing Elon said in the podcast, it relates to all of this, is that he was asked about what's the limiting factor constraints for AI right now. And he said, last year it was hardware, getting the chips. Now it's actually getting enough voltage, like transformers for the electrical grid. There's actually a shortage of those right now to power the data centers. And
that's this, it's starting. You're right. We were talking about like the power shortage, the need for power. Go back for a second. I wanted to just the other Elon thing, which was Starlink. I've talked about, we're looking at land, and in some of the locations, it's like, well, you want internet, you better get Starlink. It's like, it's not here yet, and they promised it so long ago, and it's like that same kind of thing about when does Elon say it's going to be there. But I figure that as soon as the Starship starts really like gets through its testing phase, which is doing like a ship every month or two, then they could fit a whole lot of Starlinks in even one launch. It's just like you can see it coming out, coming out of the thing.
Yeah, the tonnage between Starlink or the Starship and the Falcon 9, which is kind of the mainstay rocket, and even Falcon Heavy is significant. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but yeah, you're right. I mean, and once they get to that point, it's going to be really hard for anybody to catch them because nobody's going to be able to scale that quickly, that cheaply,
Yeah, you got real vertical integration. You've got the rockets that put the satellites in space, and if they could put another, 1,000 per launch or whatever, or 500 per launch up there, and then
I think they're building a new Starlink factory in Texas right now to scale up the satellite manufacturing part of that.
So HughesNet is a competitor, vice versa maybe, but they've been around a long time. They're the other place to get dishes, and their subscriber base has gone from 1.3 million down to 1 million in the last 2 years or something. They're just basically losing all their customers,
Yeah, we were in the hedge fund. We were short Viacom, Viasat, Iridium Communications, Telesat, all of these kind of old world companies. Hughes is publicly traded too. I don't think we actually shorted. They might be Canadian or something. I don't remember. But yeah, those old world players that they sold to like the airlines, boats, rural customers. Starlink is just eating them alive.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to be a fiber replacement. I think it's just hard to replicate that much bandwidth for the big cities. But definitely for all those other use cases, it's a no-brainer.
And it switches every 15 seconds or something like the whole grid, the set of satellites as it's moving over, the one you get your signal from,
right?
15 seconds. It's very short, minute and a half. It's like you're going to get it from here, and then you're getting it from the next one.
Right.
And it's like continues to
I think
around.
those satellites in LEO orbit the Earth like in 45 minutes or something. It's insane. But one of the other things that Elon said is interesting. He was talking about the compute power, and we've been talking about like this exponential rate of change stuff a lot. And he says that the compute coming online is increasing by a factor of 10 every 6 to 9 months.
That's not Moore's law.
No, that's quite a bit faster.
We thought Moore's law was moving things along when it was, doubling every 18 months or something like that, Talk about going up 10 times in a year.
Yeah. So that's why I think we're all going to be surprised. I think we're on this curve, and none of us can picture what it's going to look like in 5 years. And I think we're going to be surprised.
Oh, another one that happened, Cody might be interested in this one, is this technology called Suno,
Okay.
Suno. And you basically can, it's like Sora, but for music.
Okay.
And you can describe a song. You say the genre, you say what some of the lyrics that you want, and it gives you back the words. It gives you a song, right? And you're listening
Yeah.
to the song. It gives you the words, the instruments, the singing, the melody, the riffs, like the whole thing. Like you could listen to it on Spotify. At this point, it's a little. I haven't even looked it up yet. I just keep hearing about it. But it's Suno.
Yeah, I googled it. I'm gonna share the website here just so people can see it.
Where are you sharing this stuff?
I'm just gonna. I'll do the share screen here.
Oh, okay.
Suno AI. Here we go.
But yeah, so there was a. Oh, there you go. So now you can type a little description, and it'll give you a song. And what I've heard from the different examples, some of it's junk. Some of it, though, you're like, that was actually pretty good.
Is it trained? Do you know what it's trained on? Like, did they feed it all of Spotify or?
I don't know. It's an interesting question because you get that thing about like whose stuff did you take in order to go figure this out, kind of thing. But there was a big petition by some, semi-famous musician who got a couple hundred other musicians to sign the petition saying, hey, technologists, stop this.
Mm-hmm.
You're taking our livelihood. And I was thinking, yeah, where have you been? That's what's going to happen. And now it's happening to you. But it's like, it's a little hard to feel bad for, Taylor Swift, who's made whatever billions on the ditties that she's come up with, when like, I don't know what the level of talent is there, but these other people, it's like, I could say, well, they have talent. They just weren't quite able to, be the ones singing it or playing the particular instrument or something. And also the Taylor Swifts of the world, just to pick on her, just because it's a big name, but they have, the $1 million production behind what they do. And, average Jane doesn't. So this, in a way, democratizes and levels the playing field. But it's actually, you listen to it and you're like, oh my God, here it comes.
So I've thought a lot about that. So with movie production, now song production, maybe video game production, all of this being democratized, as you said, if anybody can make a beautiful song, what makes it go mainstream? What's going to make it be played on FM radio and listened to in my car? Unless you just listen to all of your own music that you make for yourself, which is like perfectly curated for you, which I don't know that most people do that. Like, don't the big record labels still have an advantage in distribution that they're going to push that stuff out on the radio?
So I don't know. People don't. Maybe I don't think people listen to the radio except you, Bryce. But
I enjoy the radio sometimes. I get tired of Spotify. I listen to my same liked song list all the time. So
yeah. So the radio gets its top songs, all the radio stations, from and I kind of read kind of a research study on this from this effect of where it makes it to the top because it makes it to the top. So the things that are near the top are heard enough to be asked for again to go and make it farther, and you end up with a kind of things being almost irrationally pushed to the most popular. In the study they took different songs and seeded them as the starting point, and those things went ahead of other things that were. So it's not like inherent in a lot of the music for it to be a hit. There's lots of other like good stuff out there. That's one thing. Then it's like, well, I've got radio, Spotify, etc. And one of the barriers that has to be broken through is people being okay with the fact that that was not made by this or that person, because everybody's got like, oh, I like so and so, but you get enough stuff that's catchy or that hits on a certain topic in a way, it's going to break in, and once it breaks in, people will accept it as alongside of other stuff. And then you've got, well, I don't know if it has to be at the top of the radio in order for it to make it somewhere. And the people will always be, there will always be people who want to listen to people, but how much will they want to? Will it be to the point of keeping that whole industry alive, or will it be more like that's just a small percentage now of the overall kind of thing?
I tend to think that it's going to be the big record companies, the big movie studios are going to continue to do all right. I'm not saying they're not going to be disrupted in some ways, but like Netflix has 260 million subscribers or something like that. And they can, if they make a movie, then 260 million people might watch it. But if you and I make a movie, then the people on this YouTube might watch it. But I don't know how we get it out to 200 million people,
Well, I mean, before Netflix was Redbox, before Redbox was the video store. I'm starting to forget what they,
Blockbuster.
Was it Blockbuster?
Yeah.
I mean, it takes a while, but there is change.
Sure.
Things take place of other things.
But I don't know that the content creation side of it is going to be what changes that distribution. I mean, the distribution changed from Blockbuster to Netflix. Blockbuster could have done what Netflix originally did, the mailing DVD thing, right?
Yeah,
but Netflix adopted it streaming, and that was completely revolutionary.
Let's take an aspect of Netflix that makes it different and say, okay, here's one of the reasons, right? Binging, right? The idea, like, I'm going to drop this whole season, and here it is, and of a new thing, and then like Game of Thrones, here it is, or whatever. So, and that wasn't Netflix, but yeah, but it's like these kinds of innovations.
Yeah,
all of a sudden, it make a difference. Now, like if some new stuff comes out that is, we don't even know what it's like yet for a thing to be synthesized. First of all, it can happen instantly. So everyone's talking about the eclipse today. So like you want to make a action adventure about the eclipse that blah, blah, blah. And you want to make it like overnight or instantly. Netflix can't compete with that.
Yeah.
And unless Netflix agrees to also carry that stuff, like to have a way for that stuff to come through from them, then there's gonna be reasons and stuff about the new stuff that makes it different in some way. That is the way that it breaks in.
John, do you know much about short form video, TikTok and Reels? Like, have you studied their algorithms and stuff, or?
A little. I mean, I know, with TikTok, they've got like the it's kind of like the gaze ratio. So, how long do you keep your eyes on a thing? And if you're going, like, if you stay on it for more than 5 seconds, they're looking at that and going, "Oh, that's what you want to see." And it's just extremely quickly steers you into your own little filter bubble.
So, like, because that's kind of what we're talking about, right? Somebody can make a TikTok today about the eclipse and then post it. And so when that gets posted, let's say they have 5 followers or 10 followers. So organically, it's not going to get seen by many people, but it could still go viral because they'll send it out to, I think I've heard Mark Zuckerberg talk about this. Like, okay, we'll send it out to 10,000 people, right? And if those 10,000 people each watch it for, 10 seconds or whatever, it's a good ratio. Then they start pushing it out to the broader audience, and bam, all of a sudden you've got a video that went viral but it doesn't all roll out at once, right? They test it with different groups, small groups.
It still happens very quickly.
Yes, right.
And it's an example, but then let's say it's like TikTok, except it's a actual feature length film that looks like high production quality.
That's so how would you test that in that scenario then, you think?
It's some hybrid of what the kinds of things that go on with it, the people that see it and keep watching, wherever it is that it gets watched. And I don't know where it breaks in. Does it break in on YouTube? Does Netflix let it in? I think by the time Netflix sees that it is a danger to them and also an opportunity to them, then they go like open up and let there be access. But then it's like, yeah, well, who do we release to? That's the thing between, is it more like Netflix? Is it more like YouTube, et cetera, than to go and do those things? We don't know how it's going to go on. My main point is that there's, with all of these, with Suno, with Sora, like there are qualitative differences to what could be delivered because of how fast it could get made, because of the high quality that ultimately it's going to have and so forth, that make you go, oh, that's different. It's not just faster, it's not just better or whatever. It's different.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you that the cost of producing that kind of high quality content is now, it could be de minimis potentially if Sora or one of these other ones becomes good enough, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not instantly going to be super cheap. Sora is really expensive, pretty much. They talk about go have a cup of coffee and come back to get that 1 minute of video. But okay, a feature length film is then 120 cups of coffee. It's not as compared to when they made. Remember when they made the first Pixar stuff, and then they came out with Toy Story, and they said it would take months to render. It'd be like you'd render a frame overnight, 1/30th of something, of a second of something, and then keep going and doing that on big heavy computers. So it's still expensive, and because it's still expensive and it takes time to happen over time and so forth, there's time there also for Hollywood to figure out who in Hollywood is still needed, how do they fit in, and making sure that they're still getting the high quality out of the stuff. Yeah. And so, and OpenAI has shown some interest in not fully disrupting Hollywood out of business. And they went to them and made them the first testers and said, here, what can you do with this?
Yeah. Do you think can AI be truly creative, or is it only mixing together some version of things that it's seen before?
I already see stuff that to me it looks creative enough. When I go and use it, I sometimes am like, wow. And you get better results, by the way, the more specific you are. If you just ask a Google type question or whatever, you're going to get some sort of standard stuff. But the more you, and now that these prompts are getting bigger and bigger, the more you go down into detail of what it is that you're trying to make happen, what you're doing, you end up with actually the product out of the two of you and the computer is more creative than you would have been. So it must be bringing some creativity. I think there is a limit to how much creativity the whole transformer thing brings, but I think that's why they have to and are continuing to look at, what are the other ways to be working at this, getting this intelligence to happen. Like some of the stuff that went into making the computer able to win at Go, where it would go and do what's called like a generative adversarial network. So it's internally, it's got two things playing against each other to come out with so that is actually the result is creative output. And I think we'll see more of it. Yeah.
Cause I just thinking about the great actors and musicians and composers and stuff of history. Will someday AI be so good that it captures the world of imagination in the way that, some of those extremely innovative people did, the great actors? And
well, I mean, I already can go and get something where you won't be able to tell, I believe, which of these two things was composed by Mozart. So if it can go and put out something that is in the style of
Hey,
Mozart.
is that just a dig at me not knowing classical music, John, or is it,
I try to cover two things at once. Put in the dig as well as no. It's like, I mean, I don't know that it's going to fool. Although there was that attempt recently to have some, either it was a rapper or somebody that it was doing, and he was like, "Take that down," remember? And then somebody pulled it back. So it can happen with that kind of music as well. I just think it's people are more familiar with that stuff. But yeah, it already does that. It can take a painting. It can do a painting, and you and I both have no idea that it's not Picasso.
But how does it go from making a good painting to being, or a good painting to being a worldwide phenomenon like Van Gogh? Like, what's something? There's some intervening thing that happens where those.
I honestly don't
become
know
who the Beatles are, even though there's a lot of people that have made good music over the years.
Yeah, I honestly don't know if number one, I think if we put up 10 paintings here, and 9 of them were Van Gogh, and one of them was picked out of stuff produced by Dali, you wouldn't be able to tell. I wouldn't be able to tell, right? Would some absolute expert in Van Gogh? Well, no fair, because they have looked at every last thing that Van Gogh has done.
Sure.
And they know which one is which. But so I don't like that. You come back to that thing about like what made somebody take off in the charts. Part of what makes X and such famous musician take off in the charts is that people recognize their voice and like they're famous because they're famous. So I don't know that it's worse than what Van Gogh has created. It's worse in the sense that it didn't have the thought behind it, for why it came out a certain way. But I don't know. And the result,
I just think at a human level, people are always going to want to connect to another human in some way.
Well, now you're moving the target. So it's true. And we were talking about that.
Yeah.
But is there a nose that the camel can put under the tent for this, where once it gets through a little bit, once people are like, yeah, but that song really got me, in general, I want humans, but that one really got me, then they start to allow it in.
This is a Van Gogh style painting of a horse in a field under the solar eclipse.
That's really weak.
Could you tell the difference there, John?
I think I could.
Yeah, okay. But still amazing that it can ChatGPT.
I don't think that. Yeah, I think it would take more. But I think it's pretty doable.
Yeah.
I like a person won an art competition, and it was AI generated, and it was like, and it's actually really was. I looked at it and I was like, I'm no art expert, but I was like, that's really cool. I like what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
So is it is it creative? That's like that gets back to the thing too about all this talk about when will AGI happen. It's like I say, tell me what you mean. Give me your definition.
Yeah. What Elon said on the call I wrote down was something like it's smarter than AGI is smarter than the smartest human. That's as simple as he defined it.
It's already smarter than the smartest human. Who's the smartest human? Guy with the highest IQ. I forget his name at the moment, but he uses GPT-4 regularly to do his stuff. He's a mathematician. It's better than him. I mean, he's better than it at math. And it's better than him at law and medicine and blah and blah and blah and blah. Well, it answers questions. You're going to go stick it in there to, operate on you? No, it's not, and can you talk about it being this smarter, just all happen in the head? Or do we get back into, are you able to take intelligent actions?
Right.
So I'll put actions with it, and we're longer down the road to get there.
So when do we get there? That'll be your final prediction. You probably
what would Kurzweil say? 2029, right?
Yeah, 2029, 2030.
I think 2029 has been his date for a long time.
Yeah.
So
what Elon said on the call is the AI will be smarter than collective humanity with computers, and like all of us working on the same task and augmented by computers, the AI will be smarter than that within 5 years.
I think that's what we call ASI.
ASI?
Right. AGI is artificial general intelligence, and ASI is artificial super intelligence.
Okay.
When you're smarter than a person, that's AGI. When you're smarter than the planet, you're ASI. And I feel like we're farther from it because, and it comes back to your creativity thing. It's like, and think of it the way Sam Altman says, he's like, is it coming up with new science? Mm-hmm. Is it finding things out we didn't know? And not just telling us not just being like a really good Wikipedia. It's telling us stuff we didn't know. It's finding out things. It's discovering things. Sure. That's his definition. And I like it.
Yeah, I like that. Well, cool. I think with that, John, we're about an hour. So everybody, thanks for tuning in. We do this every week at 5 p.m. Eastern. Cody Willard is usually also here. He's our resident hedge fund manager and gives us all of his ideas on what are the best stocks to play on all of this. But it's entertaining and insightful, and I learn a lot every week. So thanks a lot, John.
Cool. Good to see you again.
Okay, bye.
So.